Today, Josh Harris will be continuing on his Economist Gives Life Advice theme with another piece of wisdom from Nassim Taleb. This time, it's on the difficult task of how to pick a surgeon. A weighty task, to say the least. Unless I'm at the VA and I get who they get. Please welcome Toastmaster Josh Harris.
I wish I could pick a surgeon. Can you imagine a situation more daunting than what surgeon to pick for perhaps a life-saving or potentially life-enhancing surgery? Have you ever considered how you would make such a decision? If you're like Carson, go sit in room 2. You have no idea who's walking in, right?
My surgeon.
That's correct. But imagine in this hypothetical, you're first presented with option A. It's the perfect looking surgeon. It's George Clooney, might as well be. For made-for-TV, they fit the part, they have all the accoutrement, the perfect degree from the best Ivy League medical school. And they obviously must be a great surgeon, of course. But then option B walks in. It's a gruff, hulking man, unshaven, big hands. You would easily mistake him for a butcher. Who would you pick? Fellow Toastmasters, members of the head table. If you were Nassim Nicholas Taleb, one of my favorite authors and economists and even once fellow NYU professor, he would go with option B every single time. Why is this? You see, if the person has achieved a certain amount of success, i.e. they actually are a surgeon, not just someone randomly walking into the room, be careful of that one. The person who least likes like they fit the part had to overcome a lot more obstacles, and therefore you have a piece of information, dare say a signal, that they are actually more qualified than the person who, quote unquote, looks the part. See, this is an interesting thing about life. We often are mistaken for what could be those external viewpoints, right? It's maybe even a form of acting. But if you can actually succeed, and that's critical here, there is the element of contingent upon observed success. The person that least looks like they fit that mold is likely better on average. This has been seen in many different fields. Has anyone read The Millionaire Next Door? Very famous book. The key takeaway of The Millionaire Next Door is kind of simple. Most millionaires do not look like millionaires. They don't drive Mercedes, they drive Ford Rangers or F-150s. Maybe even some Jeeps, but not those $100,000 Wagoneers we heard about. This point was made very clear in a book called The Skin in the Game with a chapter called Surgeons Should Not Look Like Surgeons. Now the book, and of course this chapter, has absolutely nothing to do with actually picking a surgeon. If you actually thought I was about to give you some medical advice on how to select such a practitioner, I'm sad to tell you that will not be the case. But what this book pointed out was those things that should not look like, that the things often are what they don't look like. Why do I like this? This is counterintuitive, right? But yet, as many of you nod along, it's also true. I always love those pieces of wisdom, right? They don't fit what you expect, but when you actually think about them, you know they're true. I also like this chapter and this whole concept because it does something that I'll just admit I enjoy. It slams a lot of the prestigious experts. You see, a lot of what we hear comes from how it's supposed to look. This chapter also gets into something very interesting that, and I will admit, can be quite a bit controversial and far beyond what I'll be able to talk about today, the difference between science and scientism. Right? Someone might be a purported expert and they look the part, which if you want to get a speaking role on a cable news channel, I promise you, looking the part is about 90% of it. And there's a big difference with these things. Personally, as some of you know, I have a PhD in finance. I was maybe going to do the whole academic track. And I love that this chapter actually takes down the whole tribe of the finance academia, pointing it out to be, well, a little bit superficial. How do I know this? No kidding. I would be sitting around and call it the faculty lounge effect. People talk about, oh, so-and-so had a publication in this top-ranked journal. Oh, well, this person had 2 publications in these other top-ranked journals. They never talked about what those publications were about. They had no idea. But that was in an A journal, that was in a B journal. That is an easy way to show that it's all about what it looks, but not about the substance. This then connects to something way a little bit far field. My favorite fellow UCF College of Business alum, Daniel Tosh. Anyone ever watch Daniel Tosh? He had a show on Comedy Central. Yeah. I don't know where he is these days. One of his episodes, he had this great quote. He said, "I went to UCF. My head writer went to Harvard. Guess who gets to tell who what the F to do?" A little more explicitly, but we're Toastmasters. Now I made that connection between these thoughts. I've actually kind of traveled that world. In the academic world, going to UCF, getting a PhD, I was able to even get hired on at my institution, which is something quite rare. I did something a little bit even rarer. I essentially upgraded the standards of places, if you want to believe in such a thing, which is subjective, when I got hired by New York University. I've traveled in worlds where, candidly, and I'm not trying to completely brag on myself, but just point the fact, I got to beat out those people with the Ivy League degrees to get certain jobs. It occurred to me that my pathway, the parts I didn't take that job right out of school, the analyst track that the business school kids are supposed to do, that I've advised other kids to do, because it's a good path. I didn't go to the prestigious school. I took a very different path. And I think that's part of the reason I've had some of my career success, because I didn't follow that established path. You see, now I maybe have the roles that I wanted to have, but I will tell you this. Today I may look the part today. I don't really know. But I promise you I didn't. I think most people don't. So if you want to be successful, if you want to do what's important to you, it's not about looking the part. It's about delivering value. It's about actually providing something to this world. It's about actually being it, not looking it. But if nothing else you take away from today, if you have to pick a surgeon, go with the butcher. Fellow Toastmasters.
Thank you. Good speech.
Thank you.